Welcome to this Fixit channel, and this is going to be a quick video to talk about kind of a part two and answer some questions that some users have been actually, and some concerns that some users have been actually giving on the comment of, Flash is going to be gone by late 2020. So if you've watched my first video, you know that, Flash player is now something that will be extinct after the end of 2020. I've talked about how Microsoft will deal with Flash with Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge, but I've not touched the other platforms like Mac OS and of course other browsers like Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome. So we'll talk about that today. But first, a few questions. There's a lot of people that are concerned. A lot of people said, "Oh well, so after 2020, all the websites I play games will, not work anymore. I won't be able to do anything." Look, any respectable website, whatever it is, will need to adapt. That means they'll need to simply recode the games, redo the code necessary so that it's compatible with the basics. A lot of you said, well, if Flash isn't there, what's going to replace it? It's already replaced. Flash has been replaced by HTML5 and WebGL. And a lot of you were saying, well, so YouTube's not going to work. You don't need Flash for YouTube. It is one of the extensions that's still used on YouTube if you wish to. But in reality, if you've got a modern browser like Chrome or Edge, every time you go on YouTube, when you watch a video like this one, it is streamed through HTML5, not through Flash. Flash isn't used. By default, YouTube goes to the newest technologies, and if it really can't, it'll go to Flash at the end. So, any website, and a lot of websites, by the way, have already started adapting, and they just could see that, okay, we gotta change things because Flash is gonna be gone eventually. And my last comment here is that if a website still uses Flash after December of 2020, it's a website that's not worth visiting. And any respectable website that wants to have and maintain its traffic will adapt itself to the removal of Flash. HTML5 and WebGL is a million times better than Flash, and it's faster, doesn't crash, and Flash has always been a plague more than anything else. So how is it now going to be removed on Mac, for example? So Apple isn't totally clear on what they're gonna do exactly, but it's clear about one thing. Apple is already in a war against Flash. I mean, if you have an iPad or an iPhone, Flash isn't part of your device, and so you can't really visit any Flash sites. And for me, using an iPhone and an iPad, I've more and more learned that, there's less and less websites that actually don't work because of that. When Steve Jobs announced in 2010 that Flash won't be part of iOS, it was kind of a big gamble because there were a lot of websites. And I remember the first time I used an iPhone having so many websites that just didn't work. But today you look at it and you're like, okay, this is cool. I mean, there's isn't that many websites. And yeah, there are, games and stuff like that sometimes do use Flash still, but I guess these will adapt at some point. So as for Mac OS X, because that's where Flash is in a Mac computer, so you actually install a plugin. First of all, Flash, which was part of Mac OS X, has at some point been removed, and in 2012 it started stripping away outdated versions of Flash on Mac computers, and a year later they would ask to activate and download Flash. It wasn't bundled anymore. In 2016, it was the first to disable the Flash plugin by default. It was the first, Safari on Mac was the first one to do that. But Apple, or more accurately, its open source WebKit, the project that pushes code to Safari, has little to say on what is going to happen according to the Adobe announcement of the 2020 retirement of Flash. They say they're working with industry partners and will adapt to that eventually. But you know what? Even though there's no clear roadmap, we already see the Flash is being kind of really being removed. And I can tell you, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that there's even a ban of any Flash in Mac computers sooner than later. Then we have Mozilla Firefox browser. How will it adapt and what's its plan? So here's the thing. On August 8th, next week, there will be a new version of Mozilla Firefox released. It will be Firefox 55, which will start the in-game process of erasing Flash. Basically, rather than being told what sites can use Flash, Firefox users will get to choose which websites you want to allow Flash to be activated. And they will, of course, be site-by-site settings. It will remember them, so every time you go there, it will activate it. The rest of the websites will not. The next change after that, at some point in the second half of 2018, and they're talking about Firefox 61 through 64, basically, it will no longer remember the Flash settings. You'll have to activate Flash manually in any website that you go to that has Flash. It will not remember the settings. You'll have to, every time you restart the browser, you'll have to reactivate that plugin, basically. So that's pretty much what's going to happen there. Then in early 2019, they will begin to display a warning on sites that still use Flash that, you know, something's going to happen. And a few months later, they'll disable Flash by default. And you'll have to go into settings to actually turn it back on. So it's going to be a little more complex. And by early 2020, the Flash plugin will be scrubbed from Firefox. If you have Firefox Extended Support Release versions, you'll still have Flash, but by the end of the year, there will be no more Flash possibility in Firefox, and you won't be able to install any Flash plugins. And finally, Google Chrome is going to deal with that in another way, and it's basically, it follows a lot of the other browsers. So of course, since late last year, Chrome has by default Flash off, and you have to turn it on websites. And as limited, it's used to 10 websites, which are the very popular, like Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, and others. And you have to give approval. Now, according to the Flash roadmap posted on the Chromium website, because Google Chrome is based on the open source project that feeds code to Chrome itself. Around July 2018, and that is supposed to be with Chrome 66, sites that continue to use Flash will require explicit user OK to show the content. That user approval must be given at each browser restart. A year later, in July of 2019, which will have technically Chrome 76, Flash will be disabled by default, even for sites like YouTube and Facebook. However, users will be able to switch it on in settings if you want. And around December of 2020, or what should be Chrome 87, Google will remove all Flash capabilities from its browser, and that will be the end of it. That's pretty much how these different companies will deal with Flash as it's removed. And you know, I'm not one of those that panics. Too many people are panicking with the removal of Flash, and they just should not. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.